What is going on, guys? It's Morgan. We are back in Rugby 20, but today we're not going to be focusing too much on the game. I've just finished watching the Highlanders versus the Cheifs game, and what a game! What a game that was! It's so nice to see rugby back on the TV. I'm very happy it's back on. I thought what we do is just sort of chat about what we've seen during the game and what's been going on. Both teams aren't in this game, unfortunately. They didn't have all the licenses for that sort of area of rugby, so we'll just do Australia versus New Zealand for now. We'll just kick off the game. We'll just go through some of the talking points of the game. This isn't going to be like a full review of the game that actually occurred. If you guys want to check out the game, I'm sure you can find it on YouTube within the next couple of days. But let's get into this and let's have a couple of talking points about the game that I thought were quite interesting. So I'm not an enormous follower of the rugby or the Super Rugby. I'm a big fan of rugby. I watch a lot of the Pro 14s and the International, especially in the Northern Hemisphere, and the World Cup. The Super Rugby's just never been able for me to be watched. It was normally on BT. I never had BT. We only got Sky sort of this year, and obviously the virus has sort of stopped anyone being able to see anything like that. So I've actually gone into this a little bit blind, not really knowing a lot about the teams, a lot about who plays on what teams. But I knew it was all sort of New Zealand players on a lot of the teams, so I was looking forward to seeing some high-level rugby, and I've got to say, not disappointed. It was very nice. It was a nice level of rugby. So in that, I don't know how I'm going to butcher this word now, the Aeteorara, which I will pronounce wrong through this whole video. I apologise to anyone who thinks I'm going to say that right. My accent and lack of knowledge of how to pronounce that word is gonna let me down a lot. So there was a few innovations for this year, apparently, which they've changed from previous years. So they've now got a drawn match would have an extra 10 minutes, with the first team to score within those 10 minutes would actually win the match, which I thought was quite an interesting thing. Oh wow, we actually kicked it dead there. Although apparently my line out from kicking it dead, absolutely what I was after. A couple of new things they've added in. Yellow cards and red cards have changed a little bit. So yellow cards are still as standard as they are, but red cards now last for 20 minutes. And at the end of the 20 minutes, you're able to decide whether or not you want to change the player. So you can put an entirely new player on, from what I could gather, from the player that actually got red carded, but you have to go for the full 20 minutes without a player, which is an interesting way. I think that can maybe be innovated a bit. I think there should maybe even be two different styles of red card. Maybe if there was a red card given for a dangerous play, like, you know, a huge spear tackle or taking someone out in the air and someone landing on their neck. I think if there was something like that actually endangered a life, maybe they should be looking at a red card for the full 80. You've decided to do that manoeuvre and endanger someone. I think the team should be penalised to try and cut that out a little bit. But I think maybe the idea of red cards for the 20-minute decision, if it was you made a couple of offside infringements and ended up getting yourself a yellow card, and then later in the game when you came back on you happened to do a couple more infringements and you got yourself a second yellow, I think it'd be quite nice to see something like that. So, you know, the ability for a team to not be completely damaged because of one player's just lack of discipline in certain areas. But I think maybe things that endanger another player's life should maybe still be warranted with a full 80-minute red card potential. We need to manage to get an interception with that one. What was the last innovation? The last innovation was the referees are now paying more attention at the breakdown. And if you guys get to go back and look at this game, I have to give full credit to the ref. The referee was Paul Williams, I think it was. And what a game he had. Discipline levels that I've not seen really. Nigel Owens for me is probably the top ref in the world, but the game that I watched today was superb refereeing, really enforcing the law, really in control of the game, and it's just nice to see. It's nice to see refs not getting bullied around. There was a lot less reliance on the TMO, which I was a big fan of. The TMO, unfortunately, especially in the Northern Hemisphere game, in the Six Nations in the Pro 14, it feels like almost every decision needs to go to the TMO. Every single pass needs to be checked if it was forward. And there was a couple of fantastic calls from the ref. Check in with your touch judges, that's what they're there for, in order to, you know, clarify all these things. I thought it's a much better way. Well ref by him. I think in his own little way deserves a man of the match award. I would love to see more referees take more control of a game like he did in that one. So I forgot a little bit about the game. Damien McKenzie back in the world of rugby. Obviously, he suffered an injury last year that left him out of the World Cup, which is a little disappointing. I was looking forward to seeing him back in the All Blacks jersey and see what damage he could do. Maybe they wouldn't have lost to England if they'd had him into the team. But it was nice to see him back in. He had a great game, in all honesty. He had some very good controlling kicks with the ball. He defensively was always what I thought was his sort of lacking area. McKenzie was the defensive side of him. Maybe that's a bit harsh on him. But he played a fantastic game today. Just stopping all the new rules, managing to get a lot of turnovers from rucks in the defensive line, making some last-ditch tackles. Actual kicking game for the posts, as good as it's ever been, which is nice to see. He hasn't lost any of that ability after his injury. He's still got that McKenzie smile that he has when he's about to take the kick. I don't know why the man is so happy to be kicking at the post, but he seems to love it. It's much more interesting than watching Farrell's face looking up at the post, wondering if that's actually where he's meant to be kicking it. What else happened in the game? We had a couple of yellow cards, which was interesting. The first one came, I can't remember what time it was, I didn't write it down. It's the 30th minute was the first yellow card. It was on Karoy, which I think was a fully warranted yellow card. It was a lifted tackle on a player that dropped him onto his back. I think letter of the law states that is a yellow card, so I think it's a completely fair call. Second yellow card came in the 60th minute from Nareki, I think it's pronounced, which was a weird tackle. It was a tackle on the air. McKenzie jumping in the air for the ball, and he sort of shoulder barged McKenzie out of the air, and I'm not quite sure what the intention was. The referee went back and had a look at it, and he sort of jumped up, didn't attempt the ball, closed his eyes, turned his head away from where he was going, and shoulder barged Mackenzie's legs, taking him out. I don't know what he was going for there, but absolutely deserving of that yellow card. So yellow cards were managed well in this game. They weren't pushing for more than what was necessary. Again, good refereeing decisions being made, and only a little bit of TMO input. The referee making the calls on his own, which is always nice to see. So there's been a lot of new rules, which I sort of talked about with Mackenzie's defensive style. There's been some new rules added in for this year. I haven't followed the Super Rugby close at all. I don't know when these rules were decided. I don't know if this is something that's been in the works for a couple of years or if it's been a refined process. I don't know if this is going to be rolled out to World Rugby as a whole, but there are some that I found quite interesting. So they've had a couple of new rules. So first one, side entries into the ruck are now very scrutinised. Second man in, coming from the side, which I've always thought was actually a big thing, especially for New Zealand international rugby. I've seen a lot of games where, the rule is, you can't come into the side. New Zealand have always been the team that have pushed that rule to the limit, shall we say. They come in at an 80-degree angle rather than a 90-degree angle straight into and sort of get away with it. So it's nice to see refs penalising that. There were a lot of penalties in this match. I think in total there were 30. There were 17 penalties conceded for Highlanders, 13 conceded for the Chiefs. 30 penalties overall, which has got to be the most penalties I've ever seen in a game, I think, just because of the new rules that were coming in. Numerous ones are coming from that side entry point, and a lot from a few more veterans of the All Black game. So it sort of stands up to the point that New Zealand coaching definitely says, let's see how much we can push that rule. A couple of other new rules that came in. The tackle on the ball, or the ball on the ground rather, so a jackling style now going on. So players are always told, and have been told for as long as I can remember, as soon as you hit the ground you have to release the ball, and no one ever does it, because why would they ever need to? No one ever gets penalised for that. It's sort of like the idea of putting a ball in straight at the scrum. It is the rule, but no one's going to do that, and no one gets penalised for it. So it's been nice. There's a new rule now which seems to be coming in, which is if the player is on the ground and the person comes over the ball to jackal the ball and lifts the ball with the player holding onto the ball, it's then classed as the players holding onto the ball, which gave away a lot of penalties in this game. A lot of players, obviously muscle memory, they don't want to lose the ball, they're sort of grabbing onto it. So I think it's going to be interesting to see if that gets dished out to World Rugby as a whole. There'll be some teams that I think with the big jackalers in the team, you know, Wales, I'm going to always be a bit biased towards Wales, but you've got people like Tipperick, Navidi, you know, players like this. England have Tom Curry, Sam Underhill. There's some big players in the Northern Hemisphere that have a lot of jackling ability, and I feel get harshly don't get the turnover sometimes as quickly as they should do because the players are holding onto the ball. So it will definitely be nice to see that moved out a little bit, because players were getting penalised left, right and centre for holding onto the ball on the ground, and cannot wait for that to make its way. And there was another new rule. So the final new thing that was added in was the level of offside has been changed a little bit, which I am a fan of this rule actually a little bit. So there's always been a big thing about players remaining offside and, you know, sitting in a referee's blind spots with trying to stay onside. So the rule is now being changed to that if you are not clearly onside, you are classed as offside. So all of those sort of umming and ahhing on the line level ones are now going to be classed as offside, which is quite nice. I think it'll slow down some teams if that gets pushed out to World Rugby that involve their quick line speed, especially in defence. A big team that jumped out to me as soon as I sort of heard about how that rule was working and I was watching. The Chiefs got penalised quite a lot for it. Rushing off the line quickly and being classed as offside. But the big team that I think would suffer a lot with this rule coming in if that went to a rugby would be the England team. England have got a notorious, especially under Eddie Jones, the front line speed defence is ferocious, and it's really hard to sort of counter players sprinting off the line. So the new rule of you have to clearly be onside and not just sort of hovering around where the offside line would be, I think it would be quite a nice little innovation. It does help teams move forward a bit more because, you know, obviously the pass will get to you a little bit easier, a little bit cleaner. Oh, we've got an advantage here. Let's see if we can get another try coming in from Griffin. But I think that'll be interesting. The referee was especially vigilant on this offside rule. There was a lot of penalties given against both sides, really. I know the Chiefs had a couple of unfair ones. Highlanders played very well with this new rule. They added in a lot more mauls, a lot more scrums where they could do. Just to keep all those players honest and try and keep them onside, which is a great little countermeasure in order to make the most of that. But it'd be interesting to see with some of the other teams who are probably more defensive, probably not quite at the same level as some of the top tier, you know, especially in international. It'd be interesting to see. So another team that jumped out was Italy. Italy are the sort of team they are definitely hanging around the international scene, but they are not quite in that top 8, top 10 level consistently. So a lot of their game seems to be 60 minutes of quite interesting rugby, and then the final 20 minutes is all defensive. And I just wonder how the new offside rule will affect teams like Italy who are more defensive based if they have this harsher offside line based on them. You know, I definitely think it's a rule that helps an attacking team move forward more. So if you already have an attacking team, I think it could be quite harsh to deal with in trying to work out some of them. But again, it'll be interesting to see what teams come up with in order to try and counter some of those other measures. Another interesting thing, what's going on? Gatland is now in charge of the Chiefs. Obviously, I'm a big Wales supporter. I've been following Gatland's career for the past few years while he's been coaching Wales. I thought moving to the Chiefs again. I'm not a big knowledge base on Super Rugby. My knowledge coming into this game was I believe Hurricanes and the Chiefs are probably two of the best teams in Super Rugby. If not, don't hate me. I don't know. I thought it was my understanding was they're sort of the best, and I thought Gatland going to the Chiefs would be like adding a strength to another strength. But the Chiefs to me weren't up to par in this game at all. There was a lot of fluidity issues in their team. Defence was a little bit all over the place. There was definitely a couple of players that stood out defensively for me. Mackenzie and McCoy were two that were really pushing for a strong defence, which was nice to see. But the Highlanders were certainly working their way through that defence a little bit. Again, Warren Ball, the sort of attacking element of the team, I thought would be interesting to see. Again, Chiefs not particularly aggressive in the attacking style they were playing, which was a bit of a shame. But they definitely came back into it towards the end. Is it worth talking about that final 10 minutes? Yes, it is. That final 10 minutes might be one of the most chaotic final 10 minutes I've seen in a game for a long time. So, spoiler alerts, if no one wants to sort of hear what happened at the end of the game, if you want to go watch it yourself, I definitely recommend it just for that final 10 minutes. So, there was a 60-minute yellow card that came on Nareki. I'm not 100% sure on the pronunciation of his name. Awfully sorry. Which was for the yellow tackle in the air, the sort of shoulder barge in the air. So that ran out in the 71st minute. So the Chiefs scored a try. Who got the final try? It was Linnett Brown. Linnett Brown got the try in the 71st minute, just before the yellow card came up. Mackenzie missed the conversion, so the Chiefs were down by 1 point, which just after the team getting back to full strength, you thought, oh, this could be tough for the Chiefs to come back with. So there was a drop goal, which I don't think we see enough in the modern game. I was really impressed. Mackenzie, of course, again doing really well. Got the drop goal in the 78th minute, which allowed the Chiefs to take the lead by 2 points with 2 minutes to go. And I thought, what fantastic play, great takeover. But then 30 seconds later, the Highlanders absolutely pounding their way back downfield. And then out of nowhere, Gatland gets a drop goal himself in the 79th minute, taking the lead. And it actually led to a win for the Highlanders. Very, very impressed with the drop goal level. I do think drop goals are something that teams need to input a little bit more. It's 3 points. It's as good as a penalty. I would like to see a lot more drop goals in the game. A lot of people don't seem to use them, which is a big shame. But what a final 10 minutes! I'm not a big follower of either of the teams, but that was some edge of your seat stuff. Really, really enjoyed it. Definitely go back and check out the actual video if you can find it, either on YouTube or on Sky, of that final 10 minutes, because that was superb play from both teams. That was probably the best play in the game. So my overall views on Super Rugby are super positive. I've been very impressed. I'm going to try and follow this tournament a little bit. We've got the Hurricanes and the Blues, I think it is tomorrow. Which again, I'm based in the UK, so I can't actually watch them live. Well, I could, but 4 AM is an early time to be getting up to watch rugby match. But I'll certainly be putting on to record and have a little review over that game. Again, guys, these sort of videos I'm going to be doing aren't going to be too much based around a review of the actual game per se. It's going to be more just a general overview. This one I know has been a lot more about the new rules, just because that was the main talking point of the game. There was some brilliant things going on in the game. That I have to repeat again how much I've been impressed with the referee in this game. It was Linnett Brown's try actually in the 71st minute, which I was very happy with. Oh, they're going to get a try here. Not paying attention. Linnett Brown scored a try in the 71st minute, which came from a pass. I think it was Mackenzie that gave it to him. The sort of penultimate pass that led to the try. Which arguably could have been forward. It was a very, very flat line. We saw it from a couple of different angles after it occurred. It could be classed as forward. One thing I was very happy with was to see the referee went up and spoke to the touch judge and said, "I'm happy with that pass being flat. Are you happy?" The touch judge agreed and said, "I'm also happy with it." Wow, you never see the AI miss a kick in this game. And then they went over to the other touch judge, and he said, "I'm also happy with it." So you had 3 happies. And then Aaron Smith ran over for the Highlanders and asked the ref to go to the TMO. And probably for the first time in a long, long time in rugby that I saw, his answer to Aaron Smith was, "I'm happy, he's happy, and he's happy. That's 3 happies. We're going to award the try." So I thought that was really nice. They didn't go and check the TMO. I think that makes the game, although you could argue the pass was forward, and would the TMO have given the passes forward, I don't know. Is it fair? There's an arguable discussion as to whether it's fair to go and check that on the TMO, but the referee was consistent with not asking for the TMO unless absolutely necessary, and that is what the ref and the touch judges are there for, is to make those decisions. And it was very nice to see them, you know, making those decisions on the field and not needing to go to the TMO for every single decision. Discipline-wise was handled well by the ref. There's a lot of new rules. Discipline from the teams was much poorer. Far too many penalties with the new rules coming in. But discipline from the ref was very good. Scrums were excellent. I don't think I saw a single scrum reset, which is something we just don't have in the Northern Hemisphere. I would love to see more games that don't have 18 scrum resets because people just purposefully collapse it to try and get a penalty. That was a terrible pass. Very impressed with the scrums. But overall was very, very impressed with the game as a whole. I'm looking forward to a little bit more Super Rugby. It's so nice to have rugby back on television, being able to escape for a little bit into the world of the sport we all love. So the final try count was 3 tries to the Highlanders, 2 to the Chiefs. Dixon, Tompkinson and McCarley, who also became man of the match, scored tries for the Highlanders, and the Chiefs was Wainui. Definitely going to butcher that man's name. And Lynette Brown, again, I'm not a big follower of the teams. I'll know the main players for, you know, New Zealand teams. I probably don't know a lot of the players that just play at the club levels so much. But very impressed. The man of the match award went to Makali Tuu. I think warranted. I think he did very well. There was a couple of other sort of honourable mentions. I think Mackenzie had a really good game, just in terms of game control, very accurate kicking, very reliable. Gave an assisted pass that led to a try. He was very good with handling. And then McCoy was another one for the Chiefs, who I thought could have potentially got it just for defensive work. I think he had 3 turnovers himself. He had a fantastic game. I think arguably man of the match should also go to Paul Williams, the ref, just for a brilliant display of controlling a game. A lot of penalties given. He didn't let the anger or any of the players yelling and screaming at him get to him too much, which was nice to see. I think there's a little bit too much in the Northern Hemisphere of people shouting at the refs. Dan Bigger, Ben Youngs, there's a couple of players that enjoy just shouting at the ref until they get a penalty, which does annoy me an awful lot. So it was nice to see a game disciplined so well. Final point, guys, just on terms of penalties and stuff, there were 30 penalties in total, so which is an awful lot in a game. I think something that could potentially be looked at in this is whether you would want to keep penalties as a 3-point reward, with, if this is going to be the way the game goes, if you're going to be awarding 30 penalties in a game, if they're all worth 3 points each, that's a 90-point game in penalties alone, if that's in kickable range, which in the modern game, kickable range is anything from the halfway line onwards. Maybe it would need to be looked at that penalties are dropped down to 2 points to try and get people to push more to go for tries. But I don't know, guys. Let me know in the comments what you think about some of the new rule changes, whether you'd want to see it in Northern Hemisphere games, whether you think they work, whether you think there's anything that should be changed. Let me know in the comments, guys, what you guys think about it. Definitely drop this video a like if you want to see more. I'm going to try and follow a bit more of the Super Rugby while it's going on. And subscribe to the channel just to keep up to date with the new videos that we have going out all the time. But that's it for me today, guys. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.